Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show. Our third of the day, sixth in 2 days. A ridiculous amount of shows I've been doing. You say I get annual leave, and what do? I spend it making more shows on the here.
It was.
It's the way that it goes. I'm very happy as always to be joined by Kev, aka Scattering Indoors, aka Next Generation Arsenal. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I think last time I was with you, I was sat on the floor of my spare room. So I'm at a table on a nice comfy chair now, a bit more professional.
We've moved up in the world. We've moved from floor to chair. When Arsenal have kind of gone from ceiling to about 6 feet under in the last.
Absolutely.
Both the senior side and the YouTube. This is, of course, our youth breakdown, our monthly recap of the under 23s and under 21s, and with some kind of tidbits from the under 18s sometimes as well. And there is some under 18s news, specifically about one who's not playing for the under 18s because he's off playing for his national side, which I'm sure we'll talk about very shortly as well. But we'll kick off by talking about the under-23s, Kevin, specifically the fact that a title race has now turned into a clinging on to the title race kind of month.
Yeah, it's not been a great month for us, and I guess in certain terms that can be expected with a new coach. He's going to come in, he's going to sort of have a good honeymoon period, and players are going to respond to him. And then there's sort of somewhere down the line always going to be a kickback, isn't it? It's like having a child. They sort of go along with things for a while and then they kick back after a while and say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So maybe he's just receiving a little bit of the kickback, maybe Kevin Betsy, and he's just going through a difficult period with the team where they try and figure out their identity maybe a little bit. He's been pretty chained to the three at the back formation for most of his time at Arsenal, and I think there's just been cracks in that foundation in the last month that have sort of echoed that maybe he needs to look at it, doing something a little bit different, because I think maybe teams in the under 23 league and maybe when we've played in the cup, more experienced teams have just figured us out pretty quickly. In that back three and how to get around, especially the left-hand side or left-hand centre back and left wing back. It's been a real problematic areas that teams have exploited quite often. So that the month started pretty dramatically with that 3-3 draw at Leicester, which was pretty crazy. I can't think of many times I've ever seen this in football where we've been 3-0 down up until the 90th minute. I was trying to think of this earlier, and I honestly can't. And to have it, I think it was 7 minutes, we scored 3 goals, which is crazy. And the equalising goal from Balogun was something special, wasn't it? That turn and volley with his left foot. I thought that was a thing of beauty. Really good goal, worthy of the drama of making it 3-3. So that was, we were still quite in positive land then. Things were going good, sort of galvanizes you a 3-0 comeback to 3-3. So things are good. And then we go into that West Brom game in the cup, and man, they hammered us. They absolutely. Yeah. I watched it and it was depressing to watch. They absolutely hammered us. It was 4-1 in the end, wasn't it? And I think we had a young team, didn't we? Because a lot of our players had gone on to play on the international break for their country, so we were missing quite a few key players, and so we had a young team. And I think it's fair to say West Brom had a bit more of an experience in their team, and they took us to task. It was bad. I think we bounced back a little bit after that and got that 3-2 win against Blackburn. Amari Hutchinson scored a beautiful goal in that game where he took the ball from the halfway line and then put it in the top corner. It was beautiful. It was what you come to expect from Amari. He's a match winner, isn't he? And he's just capable of those solo goals that are just brilliant.
Maybe later in life.
So absolutely, it's what we come to expect from Amari, and it was brilliant. And he himself has sort of that's been a positive of the last month. We can pick out that he started to sort of find his place in this team. When we last spoke, someone asked a question about Amari and Kedo, and how they sort of falling behind in Betsy's system and his style, and it was sort of admittedly they felt like they were a little bit. But Amari's he's worked hard and he's taken his chances when he's got them, and he's scored some really good goals. He's got some assists, and he's really settled down in the last month. So that's, you know, we can't pick too many positives out of the last month, but that might be one of them. And then that takes us to Derby, which was another crazy game.
Yeah.
I guess the one good thing about that was an awesome hat trick from Balogun. One of the goals he curled in the top corner, didn't he? Which was just what a brilliant player he is, and I'm sure we'll talk more about him in the as the show goes on. But we got outclassed, and they exploited our vulnerabilities down that left hand side really easily. They had Louis Sibley playing, who's a really good player for Derby. He's played loads in the Championship this season. For Wayne Rooney. Is Wayne Rooney still Derby manager? I think he is.
I think Derby are not in the best of places, are they?
No,
but they've stuck by Wayne Rooney, yeah.
But he was a good player, and he was fantastic on that night, and we couldn't handle him at all. And Luke Plange, who came back to haunt us with some brilliant finishes as well. He was a sort of player that he never really got on in the under-18s, and he never really got his chance to sort of have that consistency. But every now and then he would bang in an absolute beautiful goal. And he seems to have gone to Derby and settled down and found some consistency in his game. And he looks a decent player. You can see him probably getting through to the first team at some point and getting a chance. And then, you know, we go to Everton on an awful night for Arsenal in general. And it wasn't any better for the under-23s. They were soundly beaten. I don't know too much about that game because obviously we were all sort of depressed with what was going on.
Yeah, we were enjoying. It was played an hour before the Everton game of the senior side, so obviously all the attention was very much on the senior game. But I mean, Arsenal managed one shot on target. They had 4 shots in total, despite having 61% of the possession. And Everton scored quite late, 79th minute and 93rd minute was the 2 goals that they got. But they had 12 shots in the game, 6 of those on target. So you would argue it was a deserved win from Everton that game. And that and I mean, looking at the table, that leaves Arsenal now in 3rd when they were at the start of this month. Before that Leicester game, I think they were top of the league at that point. West Ham have continued their fine form. They've obviously won the last 4 or 5. They did lose their last game, I think, but no, they didn't. Did they? They've won their last 4 games, so that's really kind of propelled them up the league. And then, annoyingly, Spurs are 1 point ahead of us now. After that, we won. Did we win the Derby game earlier on in the season?
We did,
we did.
And it's a big game next Friday against Spurs as well. At Spurs, so you know, 2nd v 3rd, that'll be a really important game. And if you know, in order to get over this hump, that's sort of perfect. You need a big game to sort of get your players back on board and you know, get that confidence back. And a win against Spurs, I think, will sort of rejuvenate that title run, I hope, and sort of set us on the right path. But you know, I tried to seek out as much information about that Everton game as I can, and it did seem that everyone was reporting that he had deviated from the 3 at the back for one of the first times, and he did go with a 4 at the back. It's not always right. The information you receive, it's not always 100% reliable, but it did look like he did try something else. So it'll be interesting to see what we get in the next few games, whether he goes straight back to the 3 at the back or whether he tries something again, a 4-3-3 or a 4-3-2-1, which everyone's reporting that's seemingly what he played with Beref up front and Balogun and Patino quite high up. So we'll see how that goes, and it seems like a big game in our title run, I think. And you know, January changes a lot of things. Players come and go, so it's sort of, I think, if we can get to the end of this year and remain in that race, it'll be a really important thing.
Let's talk about some of the individuals, because following Balogun, we know. And the thing about Balogun is that we all want him to be in and around the first team. We want him to get in senior minutes. We want a kind of a loan probably to take place in January. And if you remove Balogun from that youth side, the number of goals that suddenly disappears is dramatic. And I would predict, and to be honest, like, you have to obviously, the player's future and his opportunity to succeed in the senior team is always prioritized. But I don't think it's a long shot to say that if he goes on loan or if he gets promoted to the first team, Arsenal's youth title race is genuinely over at that point.
Yeah, it would be extremely hard to replicate those goals. And you know, Beref's done okay, but then, you know, scoring goals is what he does, and he's done okay, but he's only just arrived. It's sort of a big ask in a way for him to sort of, you know, pick up the slack that following will leave, when I think it's inevitable he'll go on loan. From what's reported, he's got lots of suitors, and I think it has to happen. The only way I can see it not happening is if Eddie Nketiah leaves in January and Mikel decides, no, I need that third striker, so I'm going to keep Flo. So, you know, if that was to happen, he would be on the bench more and maybe get a chance in the first team. So it could be a positive thing as well. But I feel like the most likely scenario is they'll try and keep Eddie for as long as they can. They're talking to him about his contract, aren't they? So I think they'll keep him right down to the wire.
I find it really, really bizarre. I mean, just listening to Arteta's press conference, some of the comments from the press conference. I'm just trying to get the quotes up specifically on Nketiah. He says, well, Eddie has 6 months left on his contract. I know this is an Arsenal youth show, but obviously it does affect Balogun's future. And he said, well, Eddie has 6 months left on his contract, and we are having discussions with him and the agent to try and find the best possible way. Eddie knows how much I rate him and I like him, and I would like him to stay at the club. And he says, well, he's our player and he's someone that we raised. He has the Arsenal DNA in his blood. He loves the club so much. His reason is that he wants to play more football, and that's a genuine reason. It's nothing to do with anything else. He wants more minutes and he feels he is able to contribute much more, and that's why I like him. And when he was asked about guaranteeing those minutes, he said it's very difficult, but I understand that Eddie is at the period of his career when, after a long spell out, after coming back and then being in and out of the team, that he feels that that's the case. But at the same time, I have a strong feeling with him that he can really help the side. Just briefly on Eddie, and then we'll get back to more Arsenal youth stuff. Do you think that Arteta's doing this right? Do you think this is, you know, the right way to go about it, or do you think we should be looking to move him on, really?
Do I think he's doing it right? No. And I don't want to upset anyone by this, because I always try and steer away from Arteta out, Arteta in conversation. You know, it's not me, but I don't think he is doing this right. I think Eddie's at a stage where he really has to leave. He has to go. And if we're honest, if everyone's honest, he's not going to make it in the Arsenal first team. He doesn't have the ability to do that. And we can all see that. As much as I like Eddie Nketiah, we can all see that. I look at a team like Brighton, and they can't score a goal. They create so many chances in the box, and their transition is so good, but they don't have a goal. He would be so good in that side, and that's where he needs to go, and that's what he needs to be doing. That's his level, and that's not a bad thing to be. You know, scoring goals in a mid-level Premier League team will get you into the England squad if you can do that. So that's where he needs to be and what he needs to be doing. I tweeted something about Balogun the other day, which you know, I felt was maybe a bit controversial and not my usual style. But I tweeted that I felt we failed him. We failed to transition him into the first team, because if you rewind, he's had a great season. He scored 14 goals. It's been great to watch. He's scored some brilliant goals. But if we rewind back to pre-season, he was ready. And he was ready to make an impact in the first team. I'm not saying he was ready to be, you know, week in, week out starting. We needed to make one or two choices. We needed to send him on loan so we could get that senior experience, that match experience in the first team somewhere else, or we needed to include him in our first team. And apart from the game we were forced to on against Brentford, we've done neither of those things. So I feel like we've sort of failed to transition him to senior football in that respect, because I think at the minute he has no real senior match experience, which is a problem. At 20 years old, he should be doing what Mason Greenwood's doing. He's the exact same age as Mason. They're both immense quality. He should be on our bench, coming on for 5-10 minutes, playing in cut games, scoring goals when we need him to. And when we look at our strikers at the minute who can't hit a barn door, they're missing sitters every week.
Yeah.
And I just think if Flo had that match experience, if we'd built him up, then he could be coming on and scoring those goals, and he's really capable of it. You know, he's not the perfect striker. He misses some himself sometimes, but he does have a lot of quality, and I feel with the match experience, that's just the one piece of the puzzle that he's missing at the minute. And I think we failed him by not providing that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, in the chat box. Sorry, just to briefly cut in the chat box. Junior says first 2 games of the season though Balogun started. Well, he only started the first game against Brentford. Yeah. He came on against Chelsea. I mean, horrible. I think is the wrong way of assessing Balogun's performance, because if you actually think back genuinely to that Brentford game, he had one chance in the entire match, which obviously took a heavy touch and he wasn't able to get enough purchase on the shot. So to say that he was horrible, I think is a little bit short-sighted. And I think that he's been only good for the youth side. You cannot. He's been far, far too good for the youth leagues, and he needs to get that step up into that next senior level. He needs a loan. If not, he needs to be. I mean, we do a preview show every single weekend of the games. I've been putting him as my striker because I'm just, I mean, I'll be starting him over Lacazette and Aubameyang because he's on form. Absolutely. He's on form, and that's the thing at the moment.
It couldn't do any harm by playing him, could he? But
no, absolutely not. There would be no harm in it.
If I think about how do you transition a striker, a young talented striker into a Premier League side, how do you transition him? You don't throw him in at the deep end and ask him to just produce, because you need to build him up with 5-10 minutes here, 5-10 minutes there, get him used to that pace, and then he will start to adapt. And that's how you do it. And, you know, the expectancy of throwing him in against Brentford, that's so much pressure on his shoulders to produce. And that was, you know, in a place where our preparation for that game would have been horrible. We didn't know who was starting who, you know, hours up until kickoff. You know, it was bad. The game probably should have never taken place at all. And with other things going on this week, you know, I actually think the Spurs game, I don't think Spurs should play just because our game didn't get cancelled. Spurs game should be cancelled, and our game should have been cancelled. And that's we were failed, and that's just the way it is. But
it's a good point. I hadn't thought about that really. Like when you think about, obviously there wasn't as many people in our situation being taken ill as we are seeing with Spurs. But if the 2 main strikers, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Southampton this weekend have got both their keepers out, not because of illness, but because they're both injured. And they've been allowed to sign Willy Caballero on loan. Yeah. Arsenal, can you imagine the uproar if Arsenal had been allowed to sign a striker after losing 2 of their strikers? I mean, it's a strange, and it's the inconsistent way that things are. Social in the chat says, Kev, would you integrate Flo now and prep him for next season to play more minutes, i.e. lack as minutes he has played this season, or loan Flo out in January and start the prep next season?
That's a really good question. The way things are going for us, it's so bleak at the moment, is it? I'd be honest, hesitant to put him in. But like you, Tom, if I was to pick an Arsenal team if I was the manager picking a team for the next game, he'd be in it. So I can sort of say I'd be really excited for him to go out on loan and then come back again in next season. I think that would be really good for him and really good for us. But also, if I had my way, I would probably just stick him straight in the team.
Absolutely.
Because he would probably do better than the players we have now. Even it would probably take him a few games, but if you persisted with him, he would probably start scoring.
At the risk of this becoming the following Balogun show, we'll move the conversation on because there's a couple of individuals that I do want to focus on. The first is I feel like this is a big month for, and you've mentioned his name already, but Amari Hutchinson. He scored a couple of great goals. And previously, when we discussed him, there was concerns that he wasn't really getting into the team because of the system that that Kevin was playing. And now we're seeing a really good, like, flourishing Amari Hutchinson with, frustratingly, very few months remaining on his contract, which is obviously going to be a concern. I think he's got a year, is he, after this season?
Yeah.
But obviously, and his agent is Kia Jarabchin, of all people, too. So there's that side of things as well. But what have you made of Amari? And do you think that, is he getting onto that same kind of pedestal as your Patinos and your Salaradines of this world?
I think he is, yeah. I think he's starting to find his way in this team now, and his performances are becoming consistent. And I think what he has going for him is his versatility, is that he can be deep in his own half, and he's such a good ball carrier that he can get himself out of situations and get us up the pitch. And he's also got that quality further on up the pitch that we know about. His vision and technique is brilliant, and he's equally as brilliant laying on assists as he is scoring fantastic goals. So he's a really effective player. He's impactful, and he's a match winner. So that's always an attractive quality to have on the pitch. Even if he's not sort of really into the game sometimes, and the games are passing him by, he's got that ability to change it in a second. And we've seen the couple of goals that he scored this month have been brilliant in terms of receiving the ball in his own half and then setting off on brilliant runs where he's just too quick for everybody, and his low center of gravity is just incredible. And he's been fantastic, and his finishing has been great as well. I really like the assist that he laid on for Balogun against Ipswich in the second half, which got that equaliser. It was a really clever little back heel, and he's had a good month despite Arsenal under 23s not having a good month.
Yeah.
I believe it. He's also playing at the minute because the under 18s are playing in the youth cup. So I think
Patino, I think, as well.
Patino and Hutchinson are all lining up. They were 1-0 down at halftime, I think. So
they were. Is that that's Colchester's youth side as well?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a little bit concerned that they're not. Seeing as they've got some of the under 23s in there with Patino and Hutchinson, you've got Norton Cuffey's in there as well. Kozia Dubrew's got a couple of minutes for the under 23s, I think, as well. He's there also. Is Gaspar Edu's son?
Yeah, Luigi Gaspar.
He is.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about it? Like,
he's picked up some injuries which have sort of stalled his career in the under 18s, but he's really been sort of in and out. He's never had a consistent run in the team. He's sort of I think he's a central midfielder, and he's not too dissimilar from his dad because he likes to tackle, but he's also quite cultured as you expect, and he's good on the ball. So he's not too. I never thought about that, but yeah, in that sense, not too dissimilar from his dad at all. But yeah, injuries and just. There's good players ahead of him in that team, and it's quite a stacked team as well. There's a lot of players at youth level for Arsenal, and I think he's just finding it hard to break into that team.
The other under 18s player that's not there tonight because he's away with the senior Mexico national side, which is it's crazy really when you think about it, because Mexico aren't. They're not a bad international side by any stretch of the imagination. They've had and continue to have some very, very good players of European level of the elite leagues, and they still do. I mean, you think of the likes of Irving Lozano, etc., that are still playing in that division. Playing in that setup. So Marcelo Flores, 18-year-old. There is the side of things that. Is he 17? I think he hasn't even turned 18 yet, has he? Or he's very close to it. Yeah. He's got this thing where he could have represented England and he could have represented Canada. Has this kind of push from the Mexico national side to get him into the senior team? How much of it is reflective of how good he is right now, and how much is reflective of the semi-political side of making sure he plays for Mexico?
I think definitely both. He's very good. He's he's had a good season so far. I think he's hit 6 goals and a couple of assists, and his finishing looks really like it's improving when he gets into the box.
Are insane.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like, I keep thinking if I tried that, I would be in the hospital. He looks like he's really improved his finishing in the box. I'm liking what I'm seeing there. But yeah, he's been courted for a long time by England, by Canada, and by Mexico, and there's been sort of this tug of war that's been going on for the last few years. I'm not sure if he ever really considered England, or whether that was more sort of we'll try and see if he accepts a call up, but he didn't. I think he has joined up with that squad a few times, and that seemed where the tug of war was between Canada and Mexico, and it seems like Mexico have won, and I think they were going to get in quickly and integrate him as quickly as they're possible to help him make his mind up, and it seems like they've won that. So definitely a little bit of politics in there, but they've got themselves a good player. He's going to be a star, I think.
Bringing it back round to the under-23s then, a lot of people have been asking actually about Omar Rekic for the under-23s. Obviously, we signed him from Hertha. He's also played at international level for, is it Tunisia?
Yeah,
it is Tunisia, yeah.
Which his brother doesn't play for Tunisia, does he? His brother, I think his brother.
No, it was Netherlands that he played for. Yeah. So how have you found him since kind of coming in across the whole season, and of course just this month too?
Yeah, I like him. He's done well, and when he's been missing through injury or suspension, it's been really noticeable. He's brilliant on the ball, and he can play a lovely pass, and he's got that ability to bring the ball out really well and go on that run and really sort of open things up in a really Ben White fashion that we love to watch Ben do, and he's got that same quality, and it's really good. I sometimes wonder if he's quick enough in terms of his recovery pace, but he looks a really good defender, and it's been a while where I've sort of thought, we have a central defender here that actually could maybe get into the first team at some point down the road. I would like to see him go on loan, because I think he is too advanced almost for under 23 football, and I would like to see him get some match experience. And I think Danny Cowley from Portsmouth rather was openly discussing him the other day and saying he'd watched him at a game and was quite interested in him. So that would be a great place to send him.
Join up with Aziz and play there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be exciting to watch, and I hope that happens. I'd be very excited about that.
To round off the show, you had a question that I'm worried about you asking now. So go on, hit me with it.
You know what I thought after we got pummeled by Everton the other night? I thought to myself, like,
which one? The kids or the senior side?
Both. I thought to myself, I just want to hide under a pillow. Like, I feel it makes you feel so low. And I immediately just think, right, I've got to do something that is nothing to do with football. And, I do whatever. I won't bore you with that stuff. But I often wonder, how do you deal with it? Because you've got to go on camera.
I've not only just got to go on camera, I have to go to work and write about Arsenal the next day.
You cannot escape it.
Yeah, it's... I barely
thought about Arsenal for 2 days after that Everton game. I just shut everything out. Yeah.
Without blowing too much smoke up my other half's arse, she helps a lot. Like, genuinely, she's a massive Charlton fan, so I don't have to worry about kind of any affiliations or any kind of rubbing it in any way. She does help a lot. Like, she helps me take my mind off things. We, go and watch telly, or go and go out and go for like walks around where we live. It's quite nice, kind of just getting out of the house and fresh air. Genuinely, she's a big help. So that's also a big thing. I think that having just hobbies outside of football is really important, whether it's gaming, whether it's just activities outside, even like, just as I said earlier, just going out for walks. It genuinely is such an underrated thing, which I know in London, if you live in London, as I know a lot of Arsenal fans obviously do, it's a lot harder, but just get out and just get away from especially like your phone and your social media. But in regards to kind of obviously coming onto a channel every day, every morning at 8 a.m., then going and doing an 8-hour shift, writing about Arsenal, coming up with ideas of pieces that I want to do. It is hard. It's definitely hard. And I don't know if you saw the tweet that I put out yesterday, quoting the Athletics tweet from my personal account, that the level of abuse that's I've experienced since kind of working at Reach and Football.London, and it's not, but just to clarify, that's not their fault. It's not my employer's fault I get this abuse. It's just part and parcel of kind of the business of being in. Yeah, it's part and parcel of being a public face and just being kind of, you're a bit of a, what's the word I want to use? You're a bit of a punching bag, I suppose, for people at times, because you are someone who's like, you talk about Arsenal, people come and watch your shows and listen to your talk and ask you questions. It's, all I can say is it's I suppose you build up a level of numbness to it, and you just need to make sure that you've got other stuff going on in your life beyond Arsenal.
It's amazing what Arsenal put us through, isn't it? It's
mad. Go on.
I just want to add before I leave. Last time we were on, we talked about Miguel Aziz and his time at Portsmouth, and I predicted, and at the time everyone was feeling things were going badly, and I predicted that would turn around. And I want to say I'm happy to be right, because 2 90 minutes in a row, he played really well the other night. I think we're going well, so I don't want to jinx it anymore.
Do you think that's because Cowley panicked and was like, "Oh, they're going to recall him. I better play him"? Is that?
I don't. I understand why everyone feels like that, but I don't. I honestly think he needed to take him out of the team, get him on the training ground, and really work on him in terms of his what he was doing off the ball, his defensive responsibilities, and you could see that in his performance the other night. You could see it was there. When you used to watch him in under-23s, he'd do all the things we love him for. Yeah, but you'd often see people running off the back of him and just not knowing where people were, and he'd give away penalties, give away fouls because he just was in the wrong place. And I think this is one of the first performances the other night where you could see an improvement in that, and you can see where Cowley's working. And it was really pleasing to see, I think. And I think we're going to see more of that. And once it's 2 consecutive starts, 2 90 minutes, and if he gets more and more of them under his belt, he's going to start developing relationships in the teams. They're going to start trusting him more. There was loads of times in that game where he tried to play 1-2s, give and goes, and he didn't get the ball back when he should have done. And I think it's developing those relationships, and we're going to see him start to do the things we love him to do at Portsmouth now, I think. And so positive. I'm happy with that. That's a positive we can build up from.
That's a nice way to end the show, and to know that Aziz is doing well on loan now at Portsmouth, because there were, as we said, there were concerns about that. So that's great to hear. Kev, thank you so much, mate, as always, for coming on. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Scouting Indoors or Next Generation Arsenal, Next Gen Arsenal. I'll be there most days. Talking rubbish. Come and find me. Come and say hello.
Give Kev a follow, people. I'm sure plenty of you do already. But thanks again, Kev. Really always appreciate the support. Chat box, thank you so much for tuning in live. And if you're watching on catch up, do leave your comments and let us know who you want to know more about in next month's show. We do this catch up every single month. The next one you can expect to be probably a little bit into January after the festive period. And of course, it's going to be hectic with transfers and loan news. So we may even have to do an impromptu show. So lots of loans and stuff start happening with certain players, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that. But Kev, thanks again, and drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it, people. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. show. It never stops. It really doesn't. See you soon, people. Have a good one, and as always,
bye.
Happy Arsenal.